A driver known as one of the worst to ever grace Formula One. Known for being a backmarker in the eyes of F1 fans and being put under the pay driver label, how did a driver known for being so useless in Formula One manage to pull off winning the biggest race in all of motorsport? This is the story of Marcus Ericsson. Growing up in Sweden, Marcus Ericsson began karting at the age of 9, just trying something new at a local karting track run by former Swedish race car driver Fredrik Ekblom. Ekblom was blown away by the talent of Marcus Ericsson and called up his friend Richard Dutton, who owned Fortec Motorsport, which ran in multiple single-seater series. Keep that name in mind. He told him some 9-year-old kid rocked up to his racetrack off the street and nearly broke the lap record. Ekblom then convinced Ericsson's father to buy him a go-kart, and then the rest was history. Ericsson never imagined he would race professionally as his family didn't have the funds to support a full-time racing career. But that would change once he started lighting up the timing sheets. 4 years into his karting career, Ericsson finally got the recognition he deserved from 1999 Indy 500 winner Kenny Brack. Brack quotes, "I spotted Marcus at a race in Gothenburg. He didn't win the race because his engine blew up with 2 laps to go, but he was clearly the best out there. He didn't get caught in any battles when passing, he just waited for the right opportunity, then he pounced as he was away. He has such patience, but when he does go for it, it measures so perfectly. He reminded me of watching Alain Prost." Brack then convinced former boss Richard Dutton to give Marcus a seat in the 2007 Formula BMW UK Series. This would be Ericsson's first taste of single-seater race cars, and he said, "I was thinking that I should be around the top 8 to start with, trying for podiums and maybe wins by the end of the year." That was short-lived though, as Ericsson took a victory at the first meeting of the series at Brands Hatch. He finished P3 in the first race, and then won from pole in the second, and was quickly described by many as the best young talent they'd ever seen. Ericsson fought a tight battle throughout the season, but at age 16, he prevailed as the final champion the series ever had, before merging with its German counterpart. After his dominant season, Ericsson set his sights to another season with Fortec Motorsport, but this time in British Formula 3. Ericsson did have a slow start to his Formula 3 career, but still was able to boast 2 pole positions and a handful of podium finishes, but no wins, still leading him to a 5th in the championship, but he wasn't done there. Ericsson moved to Toms, a Japanese F3 team, for 2009, where he set his sights on a bigger prize than the F3 crown, the Macau Grand Prix. Ericsson did end up getting pole position in Macau, but only finished 4th in the race itself. Regardless, he put up a very solid showing, winning the Japanese F3 championship and winning races in the British F3 series through some guest appearances. Another level of motorsport conquered, and one more step before Ericsson could reach his final goal. The only thing left was GP2. Ericsson stayed in Asia with the GP2 Asia series, but once again, Marcus Ericsson had a slow start, only scoring points on 3 occasions and finishing 17th in the championship with Supernova Racing. But he did manage to claim a victory at Valencia. He switched teams, moving to iSport International for 2011 and 2012, where he finished 10th and 8th respectively. And then he made a jump to the former champions, Dams, for one last push to get to F1. Ericsson finished the championship 6th, and more importantly, he had caught the attention of an F1 team. Through the help of big-time Swedish sponsors, Marcus Ericsson had interested Caterham, and although it seemed like Ericsson had caught a big break, that couldn't have been further from the truth. Caterham was generally a new team on the grid, with 2 years under their belts, but team owner Tony Fernandez made it clear that if the team didn't perform, this was it and the team would end. To no one's surprise, they didn't perform. Caterham achieved the record of having the most race starts as a team without scoring a single point, after their rival team Marussia scored their first points through Jules Bianchi at the 2014 Monaco Grand Prix. Things weren't going very well for Ericsson either. A season riddled with crashes, spins, and just an overall lack of opportunity, Ericsson needed to find another option if he wanted to stick around next year. The big issue though, he hadn't proven anything in his time in F1, but his past potential was enough to secure him a seat the following season with Sauber. Sauber was an established team in the sport, around since 1993, but there was one big issue. They had just come off their worst season ever. 10th in the standings and 0 points to their name, how much of a step up really was it? But that all went out the door once the drivers got racing in Melbourne. In his first appearance for the team, Ericsson finished P8, and became the first Swedish driver to score points in F1 since Stefan Johansson in 1989. Ericsson was looking sharp, finishing the championship with 9 points in the end. All things considered, that was a good result given Sauber was a team that hadn't scored points in a year, but that was leaving out one big detail: his teammate. Brazilian rookie Felipe Nasser accompanied Ericsson through 2015, and in that same Australian GP, he finished 5th on his F1 debut. Nasser went on to finish the season with plenty more standout performances and finished with triple Ericsson's points, with 27 and 13th in the championship, 5 places ahead of Ericsson. Regardless, Sauber was content with the steps made forward by the two and re-signed them both for the 2016 season. 2016 was not good to Sauber though. They missed preseason testing due to financial concerns, and then when the car hit the track, it was only downwards from there. Another season of collisions, retirements, and no points from Ericsson made it tough to justify bringing him back the next season, but Sauber did it anyways. Ericsson was alongside Pascal Wehrlein this time around, but that didn't change Ericsson's shocking form. 6 DNFs, 0 points, and plumb last in the Drivers' Championship out of the full-time drivers. Once again, Ericsson performed at a level where he didn't deserve to stick around any longer, but lo and behold, team principal Fred Vasseur gave him one last chance to prove himself. Now this is the part in the story where it'd be perfect for Ericsson to turn his career around and start performing, but no. He got outclassed on all fronts by a rookie Charles Leclerc, and lost the teammate head-to-head 39 points to 9. It was the end of the road for Ericsson, a tale of potential but no output, and a big what could have been story. But Ericsson got an opportunity, and that was to race across the Atlantic in IndyCar. IndyCar was a risky jump to make. Many F1 drivers had attempted to make the change and failed miserably, but Marcus Ericsson wasn't even on that high of a level in Formula 1. He had never touched an oval, and he had never won a race in anything since 2013. And better yet, he was looking in the worst position he had been in his entire racing career. Given his past performances, it's not surprising to hear that Ericsson didn't get signed to a top team. Ericsson joined Schmidt-Peterson Racing, the team that is now known as Arrow McLaren, but back then it wasn't quite the same. They weren't exactly backmarkers, with them achieving wins in the past, but they weren't the kind of team you'd be expecting to fight at the top. Ericsson had his signature slow start as he was adapting to an entirely different kind of racing, but his big break came in Detroit. Ericsson scored a podium and proved that he could hang with the top dogs in IndyCar, a feat that many had failed in the past. One big issue though: the team that he was at didn't have him in their long-term plans. Schmidt-Peterson had announced its alliance with McLaren and didn't see Ericsson as a driver they wanted in the future. When it all seemed to be going in Ericsson's way, he lost his drive. But from the depths there was a savior. Marcus Ericsson had a shining moment in Detroit and showed what he had to offer, and that caught the attention of one man: Chip Ganassi. If you're unfamiliar with IndyCar, Chip Ganassi is the owner of Chip Ganassi Racing, a dominant and history-rich team in IndyCar, with the most IndyCar championships in the history of the series. Marcus Ericsson had struck gold, and only needed to stick around long enough to find his footing. The 2020 season was a bit of a write-off with a shortened schedule, but 2021 was where Ericsson had a breakout year. But per usual, he started out slow. Quite mid-performances throughout the season compared to his teammates, he didn't kick it up until after Indy, where he outscored the entire field in points after the Indianapolis 500. He also won his first race since 2013 in GP2 with a win in Detroit, and he kept it moving with a win in Mid-Ohio, inserting himself into the championship battle. Ericsson did end up 6th in the championship, but he really did make a statement. He continued this form into 2022, which would be his greatest season of his entire career. He got his first oval podium in Texas, showing his versatility, and that would be one step closer to his greatest achievement yet: the biggest spectacle in all of racing, the Indy 500. In 2022, Ericsson qualified 5th for the big race, starting in the middle of the second row, and being given the opportunity to do something great. Fast forward through the chaos of the race, a caution came out on lap 194 of 200, and by the time green went, Marcus Ericsson found himself at the front of the pack, in a 2-lap shootout with Pato O'Ward. Ericsson weaved to break the toe for lap 199, and it all came down to the final lap, lap 200. O'Ward got alongside Ericsson in turn 1, but couldn't get past. Turn 2 to no avail for O'Ward, but as they reached turn 3, the car of Sage Karam hit the wall and brought out the caution, sealing Marcus Ericsson as the 2022 Indy 500 winner. Ericsson was the first Swedish driver to win the Indy 500 since the man that helped him the most along this journey, Kenny Brack. A boy who had all the promise in the world, torn apart in Formula One, but given the opportunity in the US, finally achieved his dream and stood atop the racing world, hoisting the Borg Warner Trophy. Ericsson went on to finish the season P6 in the championship and had the same in 2023, and he now drives for Andretti after making the move for the 2024 season. He struggled to find his footing at Andretti, but as has gone his whole career, I'm sure the slow start will be recovered.